This is Gary from Niviane, and I'm here to let you know a little bit about the band Niviane and let you know about our brand new album that's been released, Queen of Phantoms. The band name Niviane actually came from one of the founding members, Claudius Creamer, or Scoob, who was in a band prior to Niviane called Serpent and Seraph. They had a name of a song, it was called Tears of Niviane. Henceforth, when Scoob and Mark Miner and Rick Sprague formed Niviane, that name was brought in, and the name Niviane was brought into the band and has been carried forth ever since. Morrigan, or Queen of Phantoms, is actually a mythological character from Irish mythology. Morgan, or the Great Queen, or the Phantom Queen, is associated with war and fate, especially with foretelling doom, death, or victory in battle. When it came into the band, it was actually a fan of ours who was really intrigued with Queen of Phantoms, Morrigan, and she had asked Norm to write a song about Queen of Phantoms. So I actually wrote the music to the song. It's just a rockin' song. This was before the concept of Queen of Phantoms had even been discussed. I gave the song to Norm. Norm took that idea of Morgan, Queen of Phantoms, brought it to life, and if you haven't checked it out, it is the title track off of the new album, Queen of Phantoms. Check it out. So when it comes to the songwriting and the lyrics and the riffs and everything else, this is really a concerted effort of the whole band, but when it comes to the lyric writing, it's really Norman Skinner. Norman is the mastermind behind putting all our, taking our guitar riffs and just bringing life to it. Typically, the primary songwriters are me and Mark. We would bring ideas, riffs to Norm. Norm would bring these wonderful lyrics, send it out as a demo, and next thing you know, we're just going like, wow, this is super cool. Eventually what would happen is you get the six of us into the studio, and now we're dissecting the song, we're changing it, we're rearranging it, we're doing all this stuff, and you've got six guys just banging their heads at the end of the day when the song is done. So that's the typical songwriting / lyrical writing that takes place in the band Niviane. The artwork for Queen of Phantoms went a little bit in a different direction, as Dusan Markovic has done most of the artwork for the Niviane albums. He actually has done the Druid King and the Ruthless Divine. When it came to the Queen of Phantoms, we went to Thomas Ewerhard, did a great job, presented us with a wonderful looking album cover, just dark and demonic as far as I was concerned. We were all in just like shock and awe when we saw it. I thought, man, that has got to be the album cover design. So the Queen of Phantoms album cover artwork was done by Thomas Ewerhard. So originally, the mindset of Niviane for this album was that we were going to go ahead and self-release this album. We had reached out to a lot of the bigger labels, and either labels just weren't looking to take on any bands right now at this point in time, or we just didn't have the numbers. We didn't have the numbers that the big labels were looking for. We'd reached out to some of the past labels that we would worked with, and they'd gone out of business. So it just really started to look like the writing on the wall for us was to self-release the Queen of Phantoms and get it out there and promote it ourselves. Just as we were getting ready to do this, we got in contact with Rock Shots. Rock Shots contacted us and said, hey, we've listened to the album. We think it's an awesome piece of artwork. We want to release this for you. So we went back to the band. We decided, maybe this is the calling. This is what we should do. So inevitably, we had Rock Shots release the album, and so far it is just doing awesome. Thank you, Rock Shots. I've been playing guitar for a number of years. I've been in Niviane for the past 10 years, and I do have some outside activities that I love to do as well as the other guys do. We all have our own little special interests that we do. If anybody's ever checked out my personal page, man, you'll see that I love reptiles, right? I've got a plethora of large constrictors, right? Like I have 15-foot reticulated pythons, I've got monitor lizards, I've got tortoises, I got all sorts of stuff, man. So if you're into reptiles or anything like that, hit me up on Facebook or my Instagram, and you can check out my collection. So when I was a kid, I was listening to some of the same stuff that my older brother and my older sister were listening to. They were listening to like The Who and Boston and Tom Petty, all the classic rock stuff, right? But I'll never forget, I think I was about 12 years old and I got introduced to Iron Maiden Killers, right? early 80s album. It just got released and I got hooked. I got hooked on Iron Maiden, and I have been a huge Iron Maiden fan ever since, right? It was even then I got introduced to Kill 'Em All when it was still in the underground metal section in the record stores, right? So Metallica, and I got introduced to Slayer, and I got introduced to Venom, I got introduced to Metal Church, except all these early metal bands that really grabbed me, and that's what I gravitated to. A lot of my friends were going towards that hair metal stuff. They were listening to bands like Warrant and Poison and just all that stuff, Bon Jovi. I had no interest in it. It wasn't what I was looking for. I wanted to listen to music that made your ears bleed, made your face melt, and just made you like get a neck ache, right? You're throwing your horns up in the air. That's what I was into, and to this day, I'm still into that kind of music. You know, as a musician, I have overcome quite a few obstacles. You know, a lot of it has to do with like, you know, I think drugs and drinking and things like that in the industry are pretty prevalent. You know, thankfully for me, I haven't been surrounded too much by it, but I've seen other bands suffer. I've known friends of mine that have suffered because of it. And I think that's one of the biggest obstacles is that, you know, not getting caught up in the drugging and the drinking, and, you know, that for me, this is a fun gig, right? Like, this is what I love to do. I love to perform. I love to get out there. I love to meet new people. I love to play in new venues. I love to do all that stuff. But I also like to remember it the next day. You know, I like to get up and remember that experience of playing in front of 2,000 or 3,000 people on a Tuesday night in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I actually am a recovering addict, and I will have 27 years clean. So, you know, I've been through that. I've written that story. I've lived that story. I never want to live that life again. And today, because of that stuff, I get to like experience this whole thing on like this real intimate level that I extremely love. You know, outside of the metal community, I've always said that I'm pretty much like this one-dimensional type of musician. I always gravitate towards metal. I always gravitate towards kind of shreddy, like fast licks, just intricate kind of technical stuff, right? And I've had people ask me to do things, and it's a little too edgy, right? But I have grown up over the years. I've taken some guitar lessons, and I've tried to expand my knowledge. And I would love to collaborate on any other type of genre of music just to see where that could take me. But I've had people ask me before, like, can you play this or can you do that? And the answer is yes, I can play pretty much anything, but my style, what I've been doing for 40 plus years, it's been metal, right? It has been straight metal, and it's just what I gravitate to. Evolution of metal music over the years. That's kind of a interesting question, right? Because when I was young, it was just metal, right? I mean, you had your satanic metal, your black metal, but now there's just, I don't even know all the subgenres of metal. You know, there's just so many different types of bands, and they all fit that niche, you know. I couldn't name off all of the different types of like technical metal and death metal and doom metal and stoner metal and all this other stuff. There's just all these different subgenres of metal, which it fits people. People gravitate to it. There's the niche for that genre for people. But I didn't grow up like that. I grew up like we were listening to metal, right? We were listening to Maiden. We were listening to Priest. We were listening to Queensryche. We were listening to like all these bands that were just, in my mind, they were metal. But as I've gotten older, I've seen that, hey, you know what? Genres expand, and you get this different type of music that forms off this metal, and it definitely works for the fan today. So thoughts on AI generated art, you know, I think that it kind of takes away from the creativity of the band. You know, if you've got an album that you've written, or even an EP, or maybe even a single, right? The single should really describe that cover art that you have, and in mind with whatever that song is about, that should really depict what's on that cover album, right? That's just me and how I feel. And I think AI is getting a little bit carried away today in how it takes away from the creativity of people, right? It takes something and just makes it really, really simple, which It might work for people, but for me, it's like, I still believe in hard work. I still believe in taking something and creating that image and going and looking at it and making all the adjustments and going, hey, you know what? That is exactly what that represents to that song. First album that I bought with my own money was Iron Maiden Killers. My mom got it for me. I was a kid, I don't know, 12 years old, somewhere around that area. But it was like I had an allowance. I basically made my mom take me down to the record store and buy that album. I saw it on a shirt when I was in junior high school, and I was intrigued, and I was like, it was like watching this monster with an axe and somebody holding on, right? That was the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my life. I was intrigued. I had to have it. Iron Maiden Killers. Interestingly enough, I really haven't had too much of a strange fan interaction. I do remember, I think we were in South Dakota one time. We were on tour with Vicious Rumors, and there was a woman that showed up at our show, and she claimed that she was in a satanic cult, and she was just acting super, super weird. At the time, our drummer was Noe Luna, and I got so freaked out by her, I went back inside and left Noe out there with her. And Noe was like freaked out. By the time I went back out there to go find if he was okay, and like she didn't drag him off to that satanic cult she was talking about, I think she had left or whatever. And Noe let me know, like, on no uncertain terms, that I should not have left him alone out there with that chick. It was a trip. She was definitely the weirdest fan interaction that I think I can remember. Worst job I ever had, I think, is I worked at McDonald's for like 20 minutes. I mean, I just hated it. I was young. I didn't follow direction well, and I needed a job. So yeah, McDonald's is probably the worst job that I've ever had. My favorite non-rock metal song. I'm still a diehard fan of like The Cure, Depeche Mode, some of that goth, I don't know what they call it, emo music. I forget. I know that there's a technical name for it. I just don't remember. But The Cure, you know, I love listening to a lot of the old Cure stuff, and I love listening to a lot of the old Depeche Mode stuff. I often call that my guilty pleasure music. What are the future plans for Niviane? Well, right now the band is defunct. We've all kind of gone our separate ways, and that was mainly due to a decision that I had made probably about 2 years ago, and I just, I was ready. I was done. I've been doing this for a while. I was wanting just to kind of slow down, more home life, and I gave it another year, and it just, nothing really changed for me. I was really hoping that fire would come back, and it didn't. So in November of 2023, in November of 2024, I had made a decision into the band and let them know that I was going to be leaving the band. And, you know, they had tossed around a couple of ideas on what to do to keep the band around. And as of right now, I don't believe that the band is going to continue. I think that we're going to kind of leave it as it is, and who knows what the future holds, is if there's a reunion or I don't know. But as of right now, the band is defunct.